I mean, Dennis Smith Jr. I know this news is a little late. Happened around noon. And according to Charania, shout out, the former ninth overall pick out of 2017, North Carolina. My apology, two very different states. North Carolina State. He signed a 1-year deal. We assume it's probably partially or minimum guaranteed. He appeared in 37 games last year for the Trailblazers, averaging 5.6 points, 2.4 rebounds, and 3.6 assists in about 17.2 minutes. And Dennis Smith Jr. is a guy that I don't think he's broken. Yes, he suffered some injury in the athleticism. Maybe, I think he still shows it, but maybe it's like 90% of what it was. Maybe he just lost like 10%. I doubt it, but like I just think utilization and it's just the shots what held him back. I think he's a guy that has shown that when he puts his mind to it, he can play defense. Like with the Portland Trailblazers, he's averaging 1.2 steals. With the Pistons, he was averaging a steal a game. With the Knicks, he was averaging about a steal a game. Okay, even with the Mavs, he was averaging over a steal a game. People forget he can play defense. He's a guy that can still pass the ball. He's shown that he can at the very least be a solid backup point guard. I know he shot 22% last year from three, but I think if you look at the Pistons sample size, and I know he only played like 17 games I believe to close out the year last year, but he was hitting shots. He was aware of how to make his shots, and I think it's just something that he's shown. Okay, yes, I know in Dallas he also shot 34%, and I think 34%, that's not bad. That's like league average, I think, is 35%. That's not bad. And I think Dennis Smith Jr., in my opinion, was a better pick over Isaiah Thomas, Kemba Walker. Kemba hasn't been bought out, but that was the rumor. And Alfred Payton or Dennis Smith Jr., I think there's more potential in Dennis Smith Jr., in my opinion. But it is an interesting situation looking at DSJ. And I've always believed that Dennis Smith Jr. was somebody better than that people. It just felt like always Dennis Smith Jr. was never fully given. Like in New York, he never really got a full run. I don't think he really ever got a true opportunity. Maybe I'm wrong. I know we could argue that in in Dallas, my God, not Philly, two mistakes already. But in Dallas, when Luka came, it was kind of a similar situation that I wanted to compare to Philadelphia. That's what I wanted to say. I got ahead of myself. Then when Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons were there, like, they were supposed to they coexist and they made it work, but then there was also tension. And we learned that supposedly Dennis Smith Jr. and Luka were friends, but Rick Carlisle kind of was the one who created this rift between the two of them, allegedly. If anyone knows like more story about the Dennis Smith Jr., Luka, Rick Carlisle beef relationship, I would love to hear your thoughts down below. It's an interesting situation, I have to say at the very least, but all in all, I do hope he's a guy who could figure it out. I could see him becoming at the very least a high-level backup point guard and a guy who could make a living, attacking the rim, driving and kicking out, okay, which suits the modern NBA. He's a guy who can show he can attack the rim at a high level, and if he can do that efficiently, he could have, a career in the NBA. And to say that at the very least, and I'm hopeful he does figure it out. Charlotte seems to be a good situation for him, even though I do believe they went backwards by hiring Steve Clifford. I don't know. I know you want to shore up the defense, but how is hiring the coach from, 4 years ago fixing anything? In my opinion, that's just stagnant. You're not going forward. You're not going backwards. You're just staying in the same place. And then it goes like, why'd you get rid of him in the first place if you were just going to bring him back 4 years later? That's my whole thing. Maybe I'm wrong. And I know he went to Orlando, and he didn't do a bad job. And you guys know I'm an Orlando Magic fan if you've been following the channel. So I just think the whole situation is just kind of weird. So that's why I have a lack of faith. And then, of course, you throw on the Miles Bridges thing. And the court case keeps getting pushed back. I think it's September 26th now we're waiting. And I know that it's just weird, guys. It's weird. And I want LaMelo to have a good career. I'm not a LaMelo hater by any means, so